Planes come in and out of New Jersey constantly because we sit at the center of New York City and Philadelphia. Within just a few dozen miles, millions of passengers move through the state's airports every year, connecting the New York and Philadelphia metropolitan region to cities across the United States and around the world. But New Jersey's airport network didn't appear overnight. It developed over more than a century through early aviation experimentation, wartime mobilization, the rise of commercial jet travel, and billions of dollars in modern infrastructure expansion. Building and expanding these airports required enormous engineering effort, draining wetlands, pouring miles of concrete runways, erecting terminals, installing navigation systems, and constantly rebuilding to accommodate new generations of aircraft. And behind much of that work were union tradespeople, iron workers, electricians, carpenters, operating engineers, and laborers whose skills helped construct and modernize the aviation infrastructure that serves the region today. This is the story of how New Jersey's airport network was created and the role union labor played in shaping it. In the early 1900s, planes were brand new to us. Early aircrafts needed very little infrastructure, just open land where pilots could take off and land. New Jersey quickly became an early hub for aviation activity because of its proximity to New York City and Philadelphia and its relatively flat terrain. One of the earliest and most important aviation facilities in the region was Teterboro Airport, which opened in 1919. Developed by the Curtiss-Wright Corporation, Teterboro became the first airport in the New York metropolitan region and one of the first in the United States designed specifically for airplanes rather than converted from racetracks or farmland. Construction crews cleared land, built early hangars, installed fuel systems, and graded landing fields. Even in these early years, skilled trades were essential. Building hangars required steel fabrication and structural assembly. Maintenance facilities required electrical wiring, plumbing, and machine shops. Many of these tradespeople performing this work were already members of emerging building trade unions that had begun organizing across the Northeast in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As aviation technology improved, these simple airfields quickly became inadequate and outdated. Runways had to be longer, surfaces stronger, and facilities larger. The stage was set for a much bigger project. That project arrived in 1928 with the construction of Newark Liberty International Airport. At the time, Newark Airport was considered one of the most ambitious aviation projects in the country. The site chosen for the airport was a large stretch of marshland along Newark Bay. Turning wetlands into a functioning airport required massive earth-moving and engineering work. Construction crews filled and stabilized the marsh using thousands of tons of material. Drainage systems had to be installed to keep the land dry enough to support aircrafts, traffic, and the terminals and businesses inside the airport itself. Once the land was stabilized, workers began building runways, taxiways, hangars, and administrative buildings. Iron workers assembled steel frameworks. Carpenters built structural supports and interior spaces. Laborers moved and compacted earth. Operating engineers ran bulldozers, dredges, and cranes. Unions such as the Laborers International Union of North America, the International Union of Operating Engineers, and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers represented many of the skilled trades involved in these large infrastructure projects. By the early 1930s, Newark Airport had become one of the busiest commercial airports in the world. But the aviation industry was still evolving rapidly, and the infrastructure would soon face even greater demands. During the Great Depression, the federal government dramatically increased investment in public infrastructure. Programs like the Works Progress Administration funded construction projects across the United States, including airports. These projects helped modernize aviation facilities while providing employment for thousands of workers. At airports throughout the region, runways were paved with concrete or asphalt, lighting systems were installed for night operations, and large terminals were constructed. Union labor played an important role in these programs. Many building trades had already established apprenticeship systems that trained workers in specialized construction skills. This training allowed infrastructure projects, including airports, to expand quickly while maintaining consistent construction standards. By the end of the 1930s, aviation infrastructure across the region had grown far more sophisticated than the simple airfields of the 1900s. The next major transformation came during World War II. Aviation became essential to the war effort, and airports across the United States were expanded or adapted for military use. In New Jersey, existing airfields were upgraded to handle military aircraft, cargo operations, and pilot training. Runways had to be lengthened and reinforced to support heavier planes. New hangars and maintenance facilities were built quickly to support wartime production and logistics. Union construction crews were heavily involved in these rapid expansion efforts. Skilled trades worked long hours to meet strict military deadlines, building infrastructure capable of supporting aircraft production, testing, and deployment. The wartime construction boom left a lasting legacy. Many of the improvements made during this period later supported the rapid expansion of commercial air travel after the war. A major shift occurred in 1948 when Port Authority of New York and New Jersey took over control of Newark Airport from the City of Newark and the United States Air Force. The agency began planning large-scale modernization projects to prepare for the future of commercial aviation. In the 1950s and 1960s, the introduction of jet aircraft dramatically increased passenger capacity and required even larger runways, terminals, and support infrastructure. Newark underwent multiple waves of reconstruction. Runways were lengthened and strengthened, terminals were expanded, cargo facilities were added, road and rail connections were improved to handle increasing passenger traffic. Each expansion required coordinated construction by multiple building trades. Union agreements helped standardize wages, safety procedures, and training across large infrastructure projects. As passenger demand grew through the late 20th century, Newark evolved into one of the country's busiest international gateways. While Newark dominates commercial aviation in the state, several other airports form an important regional network. Atlantic City International Airport began as a naval air station during World War II, before transitioning into a civilian airport serving southern New Jersey. Further north, Trenton Mercer Airport grew from a small municipal airfield into a regional passenger airport with scheduled commercial service. And Teterboro Airport evolved into one of the busiest business aviation airports in the United States. Each of these airports has undergone decades of runway improvements, terminal renovations, and infrastructure upgrades, many completed through projects involving union construction trades. Airport construction continues today. One of the largest recent projects was the new Newark Liberty International Airport Terminal A, which opened in 2023 after a multi-billion-dollar redevelopment. The project involved thousands of construction workers across dozens of trades, installing structural steel, electrical systems, advanced baggage handling technology, and modern passenger facilities. Many of these projects operate under project labor agreements that coordinate union trades and ensure access to a highly skilled workforce. From early airfields carved out of farmland to massive modern terminals serving millions of passengers, New Jersey's airport network reflects nearly a century of construction and expansion. And behind that infrastructure is the work of generations of builders, many of them union tradespeople, who helped shape one of the busiest aviation systems in the world. When we think about New Jersey infrastructure, we usually picture highways, rail lines, ports, and pipelines. But long before Route 1 or the Northeast Corridor Railroad, there was another transportation spine running quietly through the heart of the state. It was hand-dug, it reshaped cities, and it still matters today. This is the story of the Delaware and Raritan Canal. The idea of cutting a canal across New Jersey is older than the United States itself. In 1676, William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, proposed creating a water route across what he called the narrow waist of New Jersey. His goal was ambitious, a protected inland passage connecting Philadelphia to New York Harbor, avoiding the dangerous Atlantic route. Penn even ordered a survey to see if it was possible to cut a way across the country to Sandy Hook. No record survives that the survey ever happened, but the idea never disappeared. For the next 100 years, the concept slept quietly while colonies grew, fought a revolution, and became a nation. But by the early 1800s, America turned its attention to internal improvements, and New Jersey found itself at the center of everything. By the 1820s, enthusiasm for a canal linking New York and Philadelphia reached a fever pitch. But there was a problem: railroads. New Jersey lawmakers were split between canal supporters and railroad advocates. Each side was powerful, and each side blocked the other. The stalemate ended in 1830 with a uniquely New Jersey compromise. The legislature chartered both and then merged them, creating a canal-rail partnership known as the Joint Companies, the Delaware and Raritan Canal Company and the Camden and Amboy Railroad. Construction on both began the same year. By 1833, the railroad was running from Bordentown to South Amboy. Parts of the canal opened at the same time, but the full canal wouldn't be completed until 1834. On June 25, 1834, the canal officially opened. Governor Peter Dumont Vroom boarded a ceremonial barge for a 2-day journey across the state. At every lock and bridge, crowds cheered. In New Brunswick, he was greeted with a 24-gun salute and a brass band parade through the city. The canal itself formed a giant meandering Y across New Jersey, 44 miles from Bordentown to New Brunswick, a 22-mile feeder canal from Raven Rock to Trenton. The engineering was remarkably sophisticated. The feeder canal was 6 feet deep and 50 feet wide. The main canal was 7 feet deep, later expanded to 8 and 75 feet wide. 7 locks lifted boats up to Trenton. 7 more brought them back down to sea level at the Raritan River. Stone riprap lined the banks to prevent erosion. Swing bridges pivoted sideways so vessels of any mast height could pass. By 1868, even the locks were powered by steam. And once built, the canal barely needed modification for the next century. But this achievement came at a price. Most of the canal was dug by hand by Irish immigrant laborers. In 1832, cholera swept through the work camps. Dozens, possibly hundreds, died. They were buried in unmarked mass graves at Bull's Island, 10 Mile Run, and Griggstown. In 2003, a granite monument, cut from a former canal lock, was dedicated to their memory. It stands today as a reminder that infrastructure is built not just with money and materials, but with human lives. A canal journey from Bordentown to New Brunswick took nearly 2 days, but that was revolutionary. Before the canal, shipping goods from Philadelphia to New York by sea could take 2 weeks. The canal transformed cities at its ends. Trenton's population quadrupled. Ironworks, ceramic factories, and manufacturers surged in. But the canal's greatest beneficiaries were New York and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania anthracite coal, destined for New York's furnaces and homes, became the canal's lifeblood. At its peak in 1871, nearly 3 million tons of freight passed through the canal, more than the Erie Canal carried that same year. And it wasn't just canal boats. Sailboats, steam tugs, yachts, and even naval vessels passed through this narrow waterway. Ironically, the canal's decline began with its own partner. In 1871, the Pennsylvania Railroad leased the canal and its rail connection for 999 years. From that moment on, canal traffic steadily fell. Railroads were faster. They ran day and night. They didn't freeze in the winter. By 1893, the canal was operating at a loss and never recovered. Some historians believe the railroad intentionally starved the canal of maintenance while favoring rail shipments with lower rates. In 1933, the canal closed for the winter. It never reopened. 4 years later, ownership reverted to the state of New Jersey. Yet, the canal wasn't finished. As industries spread out in the 1930s and 40s, they needed water, and the canal could provide it, cheaper than wells. So the canal reinvented itself, not as a transportation corridor, but as a water supply system. Parts were filled in, including a section in Trenton that became Route 1. Other sections were modernized with concrete structures, steel gates, and improved flow systems. In 1973, the canal was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. 1 year later, citizen advocacy helped create the Delaware and Raritan Canal State Park. Today, more than 1 million people visit the canal each year. It's a recreational corridor, a conservation link, a historic landmark, and it still supplies water to industry, agriculture, and drinking water systems serving nearly 1 million New Jersey residents. This canal helped build cities, power industry, and shape the economy of an entire region. The Delaware and Raritan Canal reminds us that infrastructure doesn't disappear when its original purpose ends. When we preserve it, adapt it, and understand its history, it continues to serve us in ways its builders could never have imagined. And that's why our infrastructure matters.
Bulldozers, excavators, and cranes. Heavy machinery covers the lot of the Operating Engineers Training Center, Local 825 in Dayton, New Jersey. It's where 7,800 union members across New Jersey and Lower New York train before building local infrastructure.
We have everything almost soup to nuts that you would see in the construction industry. We teach everything here.
Greg Lullaby, a second-generation crane operator, now oversees the training center's operations.
We invest in training every year because what we do is so critical.
Before operating heavy equipment,
Pull it back to you nice and easy.
the trainees start here.
We have about 170 students now, and then we retrain. A big component of what we do is taking somebody like myself who may have been around 40 years, but the technology changed.
All students, both men and women, have to undergo OSHA safety training and get familiar with the heavy equipment.
We'd have two people standing on the ground right there. You're the pitcher and they're standing where they want the ball to go.
They told me practicing on the simulator gives them the confidence they need on the heavy hitters.
This one just has different variations to it with cranes and drills.
These future operators are in high demand with major construction ramping up. Local 825 is bridging tradition and technology for a brighter future. Roxanne Evans, News 12.
When union labor and contractors come together for one common goal, anything can be accomplished. ELECT, the Engineers Labor Employer Cooperative. We are the labor management fund for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. From Kingston to Cape May and from river to river, we're creating the opportunities that spawn real economic development and building the future. As members of the business community and chambers of commerce, we create the partnerships needed to collaborate success. As advocates, we shape the public policy in local town halls and state houses that protect our members and generate possibilities. We eliminate entry barriers that ensures our members are ready on day one for whatever work our contractors require. And as industry innovators, we develop grant programs to help our contractors compete in underrepresented market sectors. This is what the 21st century organized labor looks like. This is ELECT, building the infrastructure New York and Jersey relies on.
Clean water, delivered straight to your home, is something most people take for granted. But in New Jersey, aging drinking water infrastructure is leaking, crumbling, and in urgent need of repair. In some cities like Newark, up to 40% of the water is lost before it even reaches the tap. New Jersey's drinking water travels through a complex network, stored in dams and reservoirs, filtered through treatment plants, and delivered through a labyrinth of underground pipes, many of them over a century old. This system serves over 9 million residents, but it wasn't built to last forever. In Newark alone, 40% of the city's drinking water is lost to leaks. Statewide, the number is over 130 million gallons per day, enough to supply entire towns. Lead pipes, still buried beneath thousands of homes, pose a health risk to children and families. Old valves and undersized mains can't meet today's demands or tomorrow's emergencies. New Jersey also relies on more than 1,600 dams to hold drinking water in reservoirs. Many were built in the 1950s and 60s, and dozens are now considered high hazard, meaning failure would endanger lives downstream. Like water mains, Our dam infrastructure needs modernization before small issues become disasters. Rebuilding drinking water systems is no easy job. Operating engineers are the men and women trained to do it, operating heavy machinery, laying new mains, and repairing dams with pinpoint precision. They complete thousands of hours of training to keep water clean, safe, and flowing. Thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, over $1 billion is coming to New Jersey for water system upgrades. That means safer drinking water, stronger dams, and thousands of union jobs. But we can't stop now. The future of clean water depends on steady investment and skilled workers ready to build it. Let's dig into a question a lot of New Jersey families are asking. Why is my electric bill so high when I haven't even used more power? The truth is, your bill isn't just one number. It's really 5 bills rolled into one. Ever wonder what the supply charges on your New Jersey energy bill really mean? That's the part of your bill that covers the actual cost of producing the electricity you use, the generation itself. Your utility doesn't set those prices. They're based on market rates for power from different sources, like natural gas, nuclear, and renewables. When fuel prices rise or state policies change, supply charges can climb, even if your usage stays the same. So next time you look at your bill, remember, supply is what it costs to make the power, not deliver it. When you see delivery charges on your New Jersey energy bill, that's not the cost of making electricity. It's the cost of getting that power safely to your home or business. Delivery charges cover the poles, wires, maintenance, customer service, and emergency response that keep the system running 24/7 in every kind of weather. These rates are regulated by the state, meaning your utility can't raise them without approval from the state via the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. So while supply is what it costs to make electricity, delivery is what it takes to keep it flowing reliably to you and your home. Public policy charges are the state-mandated programs built into your energy bill. They fund clean energy, energy efficiency, and assistance programs for low-income families. They fund environmental initiatives that support New Jersey's long-term energy goals. These aren't utility profits. They're public programs required by state law and approved by regulators. And consumers are responsible for paying them. Taxes and fees on your New Jersey energy bill are state and local charges collected to fund government services. They're separate from supply and delivery, but a part of your bill that helps fund state efforts. So let's ask, why are all of these pieces climbing at once? Starting in 2016, New Jersey started importing electricity from the PJM grid. After a series of power plant retirements, the state has become even more dependent upon importing electricity from other states. The state hoped offshore wind would increase in-state electricity, but in 2023, Ørsted pulled out of what was to be the state's first offshore wind farm, blaming post-COVID supply chain problems and inflation. Today, New Jersey still has no credible plan for baseload power to meet growing demand and the added usage from building electrification, EVs, and AI. Instead, Trenton is betting heavily on intermittent wind and solar. The problem is, when the sun sets or the wind stalls, the grid still needs power. And right now, that means scrambling for imports and other expensive means. That's why bills keep spiking. Bottom line, these alternative energy sources are unproven and unreliable. So when we are short on supply, we pay more. Ultimately, the solution to New Jersey's electricity shortage is building additional baseload generating capacity from sources like natural gas and nuclear. When the world goes dark, nuclear power keeps the lights on. Day or night, rain or shine, it delivers steady, reliable energy when consumers need it most. While other sources depend on the weather, nuclear energy runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, quietly powering homes, hospitals, and entire communities. And it does it without the carbon emissions. That's because nuclear power is the energy that never sleeps, reliable, clean, and always on. As New Jersey plans for a stable energy future, natural gas is emerging as a key part of the solution. Abundant and widely available, natural gas provides reliable baseload power, keeping electricity flowing day and night, even when solar and wind aren't producing. By using natural gas strategically, New Jersey can help stabilize energy prices, protecting families and businesses from spikes while we transition to cleaner sources. As energy costs continue to rise across New Jersey, the pressure is on Trenton policymakers to take action. Experts say the state must look to reliable sources like nuclear and natural gas to stabilize the grid and protect consumers. Nuclear energy provides clean, steady power 24/7, while natural gas is abundant and flexible, able to meet demand even when renewable sources like wind and solar fluctuate. Together, they form a foundation for a stable, affordable energy supply. Policymakers should focus on policies that encourage investment in these reliable sources, streamline regulatory approvals, and support infrastructure upgrades, all steps that help control costs for families and businesses. Renewables can be integrated into this stable grid, but are not ready to take over. Spain and Portugal learned that the hard way. Without these moves, New Jersey risks price volatility, supply shortages, and economic strain. By embracing a balanced mix that includes nuclear and natural gas, the state can bring down bills while keeping the lights on for everyone. Because when it comes to energy, it's not just the cost, it's the unpredictability. With more reliable and abundant sources of energy, electric bills for your family can be stabilized. No more guessing if you'll be able to afford your next electric bill. This isn't just about energy, it's an affordability crisis. Energy costs drive everything. If power is unaffordable, the state's affordability crisis gets worse. When policy is done right, we see reliable, clean energy at predictable prices, investment in innovation, and reduced carbon emissions. Homes stay warm in winter, businesses stay productive, and communities thrive. But when policy goes wrong, the consequences hit hard. Unstable markets, skyrocketing prices, and energy shortages can ripple through households and businesses alike. The burden falls heaviest on families already struggling to make ends meet. Affordability becomes a real challenge. Poor planning can turn essential energy into a costly, unpredictable expense, impacting everything from schools to hospitals. Getting energy policy right is about more than kilowatts. It's about security, fairness, and a sustainable future we can rely on. Until New Jersey builds around nuclear and natural gas, bills will keep climbing. Baseload first, everything else second.